This is ABC News Channel 20, Nightside.
Our 8-week-long investigation continues tonight with a look at the destruction of the internal affairs file of one of the highest-ranking members of the Springfield Police Department, Deputy Chief Cliff Busher.
This week, we've shown you the never-before-released details of what allegedly happened that night in March of 2008. Tonight, our investigation examines the efforts by the police department and the city attorney's office to change the police union contract, allowing for the immediate shredding of Deputy Busher's disciplinary file, even though it was the subject of a Freedom of Information Act request. And we will introduce you to one person who told the chief of police and a top city attorney not to destroy Deputy Chief Busher's file. And now, part 2 of Ready, Set, Shred. 4 Springfield cops and a bunch of kids were vacationing at this resort in the Missouri Ozarks in 2008. There was an incident on the night of March 22nd involving then Commander Cliff Busher. These documents from the Taney County, Missouri Sheriff's Department state that then Commander Busher was intoxicated and fired his gun several times over a lake. After initially being charged with a felony, these court documents show Commander Busher pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor. He was fined, sentenced to probation, and ordered to serve community service. Back home, after an internal affairs investigation, the Springfield Police Department gave Busher a 30-day suspension and demoted him from commander to lieutenant, according to this internal affairs document. In 2010, Chief Robert Williams promoted Busher from lieutenant over the rank of commander to his current position, deputy chief. But as we showed you Monday, police internal affairs documents obtained exclusively by News Channel 20 show the alleged events of that night were more serious than what was reported at the time. Those documents are internal affairs interviews with 2 other high-ranking Springfield police officers and 1 teenage boy, all of whom were there on that night in 2008. These court documents from the Taney County, Missouri Prosecutor's Office show that Commander Busher was intoxicated and armed and fired a gun. The 2 police officers and the 15-year-old teen also accused Commander Busher of making idle threats of violence about a woman he argued with at a bar. Then there is this accusation from the internal affairs interview with 15-year-old Jake Joslin. He stated while Busher was still holding the gun, which was pointed at the ground, Commander Busher looked at him, and in a joking manner, Busher said, quote, "You want to lose that leg, mother expletive." In his internal affairs interview, Busher stated that he didn't remember saying that, and he denied ever threatening anyone with a gun. Deputy Chief Busher's internal affairs file, with details from that night, were destroyed by the police department after the union contract was changed. So Busher's file and dozens of others could be shredded immediately. How did that unfold? The most recent chapter starts Monday, April 11th of this year. That's when Calvin Christian, a Springfield police blogger, sent this Freedom of Information Act request, or FOIA, to the city, asking for Deputy Chief Busher's internal affairs file regarding that 2008 Missouri incident. According to several sources, in the days following Christian's FOIA request, talks began between the police department, the police union, and the city attorney's office to change the existing contract. The original contract called for the SPD to destroy some internal affairs disciplinary records, like Deputy Chief Cliff Busher's, 5 years after the date of punishment. According to this SPD document we obtained, Deputy Chief Busher was suspended and demoted for the Missouri incident on July 14, 2008, meaning before the contract change, his file was eligible to be shredded on July 14, 2013. But the union contract change under discussion in the days following Christian's FOIA request would allow internal affairs disciplinary records to be destroyed 4 years after the date of punishment. That change would allow for the immediate destruction of Deputy Chief Busher's file along with more than 30 others. On Thursday, April 18th, Calvin Christian received this letter from the city's attorney's office telling him it needed 5 more business days to review Deputy Chief Busher's file to see if it was exempt from his FOIA request. The letter states it will respond to Christian no later than April 25th. On Tuesday, April 23rd, enter Lieutenant Chris Mueller. He's the head of internal affairs at the Springfield Police Department. News Channel 20 has obtained a series of emails written by Lieutenant Mueller showing that on this day, he found out about the plan to change the contract, allowing for the immediate destruction of Deputy Chief Busher's file. These emails, obtained by News Channel 20, show that Lieutenant Mueller raised repeated objections to the contract change to Police Chief Williams and Assistant City Attorney Jeanette Wittendorf. This email is from May 5th. It is from Lieutenant Mueller, and it's sent to Assistant City Attorney Wittendorf. The email recounts 2 phone conversations that Lieutenant Mueller says he had with Wittendorf, warning her not to change the contract, allowing for the immediate destruction of the internal affairs files. The first conversation with Wittendorf, according to the email, took place on Tuesday, April 23rd. Here, Lieutenant Mueller writes how he expressed his concerns over, quote, expunging files that were subject to a valid FOIA request, specifically my informing you of what the ramifications could be, the potential motives behind the movement, and that I provided you with background information regarding one particular case involving Deputy Chief Busher. The second phone call with Wittendorf took place on April 24th. According to the email, during that phone call to Wittendorf, Lieutenant Mueller writes how he reiterated his concerns. Another email, written by Lieutenant Mueller, also on May 5th, is sent to Chief Robert Williams. This email recounts the meeting Lieutenant Mueller says he had with Chief Williams in his office on Wednesday, April 24th, one day before the shredding took place. In this email to Chief Williams, Lieutenant Mueller writes how he, quote, vehemently advised against the rush to expunge files that appeared to be in response to a FOIA request. Continuing, Lieutenant Mueller writes, quote, that I did so to the point that I stated I wanted no part of it, and even understood if that meant you need to transfer me. Keep in mind, as we told you in our previous story, Chief Williams was aware of at least some, if not all, of what was in Deputy Chief Busher's internal affairs file. Several of the internal affairs documents we obtained show that Williams, then an assistant chief, was involved in the internal affairs questioning of some of the officers who were there during the 2008 incident in Missouri. Chief Williams even took part in questioning then Commander Busher during his interview. Thursday, April 25th. The deal is done. This is a copy of the document called an MOU, changing the union contract to allow certain internal affairs documents to be destroyed after 4 years instead of 5. That change allows for the immediate shredding of Deputy Chief Busher's file and dozens of other internal affairs files. It's signed by the police union president, Chief Williams, and initialed by Assistant City Attorney Wittendorf. That same day, 1:25 p.m., these emails show that Assistant City Attorney Wittendorf emailed her boss, Chief City Attorney Mark Cullen, quote, IA needs confirmation from you that this is to be effective immediately. Chief City Attorney Cullen responds, the expungement of files subject to that MOU needs to occur immediately. As head of internal affairs, it is Lieutenant Mueller's job to shred those IA documents. At 3:01 p.m., this email shows that Lieutenant Mueller wrote Chief Williams demanding a direct order before he'll begin the shredding. Quote, I respectfully request your direct order to proceed with the file expungements. At 4:12 p.m., this email from Lieutenant Mueller is sent to Assistant Attorney Wittendorf. Quote, the chief just called via cell phone and gave me the direct order. It shall be done. At 4:30, just 18 minutes after Lieutenant Mueller's email stating he will begin the shredding, this letter from the city attorney's office was emailed to Calvin Christian regarding his FOIA request for Deputy Chief Busher's file. It says simply, quote, the Springfield Police Department has no documents responsive to your request. A few days later, the story about the contract change breaks in the media. For about a week, there's a flurry of activity about what's taken place. Suggestions of a cover-up were raised by members of City Council. In his one and only press conference on the matter, Chief Robert Williams said, the fact that a FOIA request coincided with the shredding of those documents doesn't mean any wrongdoing took place.
The things that I chose to do that I didn't do is given the perception that somehow the Springfield Police Department has done something wrong, and I don't believe that to be the case.
In addition, Chief Williams said at the press conference the contract change was done to make the department more efficient. Alderman Frank Edwards says council members questioned Chief Williams in private about the shredding.
Because let's be honest, if you've got a $38 million budget and you've got 300 plus employees, shredding 36 records is going to make you efficient? Really?
This letter from Union President Don Edwards was sent to the rank and file one day after the contract change on April 26th. Edwards writes that the contract change was made to, quote, keep our personnel files away from those that would intend to embarrass us. Edwards has not responded to several interview requests. Chief Williams wouldn't answer our questions, citing a pending lawsuit against the city filed by Calvin Christian, the man that filed the FOIA request for the Busher file. 2 weeks after the files are shredded, Mayor Mike Houston weighs in, saying he knew nothing about the contract change and didn't know the files had been destroyed until after the fact. Still, he lends his support to Chief Williams and Deputy Chief Busher.
I think that probably this is a direct result of different factions within the Springfield Police Department that are attempting to discredit one person who they consider to be a candidate for Chief of Police.
This email is dated May 6th. It's from Chief Williams, who's responding to Lieutenant Mueller's email, referring to the contract change, allowing for the shredding. Chief Williams writes, quote, "I had to lean more heavily than normal on the legal advice that I was receiving." Chief Williams continues, "I assured you that I would ask the question, 'Are you sure?' before proceeding. I got an answer, and based on that, I proceeded." Chief Williams states, "My only regrets in this whole matter is that I did not approach my boss, Mayor Houston, and take advantage of his years of experience. In hindsight, I do not know how I made such a blunder, but you did not make it, and I take full responsibility." Chief Williams also states, "I have managed to harm the image of the agency by giving the perception, by some, that we acted in an illegal manner. I do not believe this to be the case." Chief Williams ends his email to Lieutenant Mueller by stating this, "You had no part in it, and I know that if you thought what we were doing was illegal, you would have never taken part, no matter who issued the order." On the same day Chief Williams sent that email, sources say Lieutenant Mueller met with Mayor Houston in his office. That same day, May 6th, Mayor Houston sent this letter to State Attorney General Lisa Madigan, asking her to investigate the contract change, allowing for the destruction of Deputy Chief Busher's internal affairs file, along with dozens of others, to see if any wrongdoing was committed. The Attorney General's office declined to investigate the case. The case is currently being investigated by the Illinois State's Attorney Appellate Prosecutor's Office, along with the Illinois State Police. And several well-placed sources tell us that the ISP has already interviewed several of the people involved in our story, including Lieutenant Chris Mueller. We have tried repeatedly in the past few days, both by email and telephone, to reach the mayor, the chief of police, and the city attorney to get their comments to the information that we have uncovered. None of them responded to our repeated requests or are willing to answer our questions. We're not done. Tomorrow night, our investigation continues by digging deep to see if laws were broken involving the document shredding, and if they were any broken intentionally? Ready, Set, Shred continues tomorrow night on Nightside.